Well, one starting point, and that one of the kind of integration techniques you'll find some companies move to is to start thinking about setting up some kind of data repository. So when reports come in, you do try and carve out a bit of resource to tag the information in some way. In fact, we're doing something. Actually, this is something we're doing at the moment for a manufacturer of knee, hip, and shoulder joints, basically. And so that we've done a film that's actually setting up a data repository. Everything's tagged. So when the next problem comes along, you've got things tagged by this relates to Germany, this relates to shoulders, this relates to this kind of problem. So if you could, it's a little bit of resource to try and do that. So you're not just opening the door and seeing just masses of reports fall off the shelf. You've got some sort of framework. I know it is easy to say, but it's just a way into this. Because you can then say to a researcher, well, we've got a day now, I'm working with something that's organised in that way, with some sort of structure.
Yeah, we do. We have databases.
And then build that up, and then you could actually say, right, is this information, this is switching to another study that we did years ago for BT. They gave us their last 500 research reports to read and say, what strategic lessons can we learn from that? We don't want you to repeat back the tactical information that was in each of these 500 reports. We want to know, a strategic message. And so you do have to have some sort of housekeeping data repository thing, but it's not just like a database. It's actually on that one we had, this seems to be of high strategic value, that where the information holds good over time. So it narrowed it down. So when we were looking at the big stuff for them, we could go to it. I know that does need resource, but I think that's the start point for it.
Maybe there's something we can talk about afterwards, so let's see if we can move you forward on that.
I'd love to be able to say that all you need to do is to come on our course, which is called kind of data crunching on the cheap. And that it would be great if we could invent that method, because I feel for exactly what you're saying. Over the years in the world of public health, in primary care, in social medicine, in the more academic field of sociology applied to medicine, then the idea of vast amounts of data sitting there not being used is, I think, common across all sectors. Academic definitely, drug companies for sure, all sorts of third sector organisations, and I think that it's definitely a major challenge. People sometimes make the mistake of thinking that there are very quick technical or indeed technology fixes. And so I think sometimes people set their hopes too high. So a very good example would be, I meet people on a relatively regular basis who are either in the health service or allied to the health service, who have been building up huge bodies of essentially qualitative textual data. They may be, the most recent group of people I was talking to were complaints managers in NHS trusts, who actually sit on fairly large archives of emails and letters and case material involved in complaints that people have made, formal complaints. I'm not talking about PALS work, patient advice and liaison work, or generalised feedback work, but literally the centre of the donut, the complaints themselves. And of course, they have the recognition, the realisation that wrapped up in this body of textual data would be some genuinely useful lessons for people who run NHS trusts, even if the stories came from other trusts. That there would be a generalisable level of the kind of things that make up an NHS complaint that could be used all over the place. And there was a significant number of people in that room who thought that by getting a computer program, or what's known as a CACDAS computer program, many of you know, computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software, with the unlovely acronym CACDAS, but that by buying a computer program like NVivo or like Max Qualitative Data Analysis, that they would somehow be able to kind of shove the letters in at one end and get a kind of finished product out of the other, of a number of bullet points of this is what your trust can do to improve patient experience. And of course, it doesn't work like that. That you can find all sorts of technological tools, but in the end, they're only a tool. And so you can give someone a pile of paper, give them a biro, but it doesn't make them Shakespeare, or indeed a quill pen, and it wouldn't make them Shakespeare. That someone's actually still got to do the idea stuff and get it down. And I think that data analysis techniques are a bit like that. That there isn't the quick technological fix. But the tools that do exist and that constantly come onto the marketplace and replenish themselves in the marketplace genuinely are useful. I mean, that they really can do a lot, and it's in many ways it's the conceptual part of making interpretations that's the missing part of the jigsaw, rather than the ability to deal with the data. The ability to deal with the data is becoming easier and easier.
It's the interpretation.
But it's the interpretation side that's difficult. And there's a lot of people who work in the academic world, again, with students and particularly postgraduate students, who find it very difficult to get the students to go that extra step and fly a kite. Don't just repeat to me what's going on in the data. If you're the supervisor, for example, you told me 6 stories, very interesting, but they're still in the words of the clients. The extra step is the one that says you can spread your wings and fly, and take those stories, put them together and say, here is a genuinely analytical finding, here is a genuinely analytical statement which is telling us what's going on within this organisation or this environment. Now, I think that it's possible to at least encourage people to take those extra steps. But it is risk-taking. I think that people don't realise that whether you're dealing with the hard numerical data side of the picture, or you're dealing with the soft, cuddly kind of tree-hugging side of the picture, that actually making interpretation based on data does mean putting yourself in a relatively risky position. But I do think that within organisations, people ought to be encouraged to take those risks, because they're worth it. That's my opinion. They can answer questions and they're worth it. So.
You weren't here, Elizabeth, but that's basically what our USP is, our second USP, and that is really to help you, the client, support you in making an effective decision that's going to lead to some sort of action. And I think both Charlie and David have encapsulated this far better than I did in my presentation, and that this is the richness of it, and you do have to take that risk. But you need some support to be able to do that. And that's where I feel that's where we can help.